me working with Charles back in 2017, and at that point, the team wasn't that big, and there was nobody really doing business development except for Charles and me. And Charles had to do Charles stuff, so they needed somebody to do business development. So I said, "Hey, I'll do business development for all of Cardano." And so
He's the
whenever we
best.
go to conferences, Charles would do a speech or a keynote, and then people would start asking him questions. Then he'd say, like, talk to Dan, he's over there. There's actually like tape of him doing this, back in Consensus 2017 and whatever. It's really funny. Dan is over there. Talk to him if you got any business for me or whatever. And so I would also get emails forwarded from Charles to me that had to do with anything with business. And so one late night, I get an email from a guy that is a fan of the ecosystem, just kind of exploring it a little bit. And he just kind of says, you know what, I don't even know if you guys are going to read this, but I work at New Balance, and we have an issue with secondary market counterfeit products.
Mm.
For luxury brands, not for luxury brands, for luxury items. And so I said, New Balance, this is pretty interesting. Okay, so let's talk to these guys. So I set up a call, and of course he's in the US, I'm in Japan, and it was like at obscene times for me. It was like 2 a.m. for me. I would take these calls, and then I started talking to this guy, and so he turned out to be the head of security, or basically whatever department deals with counterfeiting and that kind of stuff, right? He was the head of that part of New Balance. And so one thing led to another, and we started talking about potentially creating a solution for New Balance to utilize in their luxury sneaker lines in order to authenticate these luxury sneakers, because these luxury sneakers were, they go for a lot of money. They go for sometimes thousands of dollars, and they go up in price because they're collector's items. So they need to have a way to authenticate them. And there's actually there's a multi-billion-dollar counterfeiting industry out there for these items that would have basically it was a whole industry. So what they would do, that he would told me that one of the things that they were having a problem with is they would put out a luxury sneaker line, and then say somewhere in China or whatever, right? Somebody would make a website that would completely copy the official New Balance website, buy an address that's super close to New Balance. It's like New Balance or something like that, right? Or Now Balance, or just really, really close, so people couldn't really tell the difference if they weren't really looking at it. And what they would do is they would copy and paste to the website, and then they would say that these are available at 20% less, not 50% less, because 50% less people would get suspicious, but 10, 20%, like, oh, okay, 10%, I can see them doing a 10 to 20% sale. And so they would go to these websites, and of course they'd get ripped off, because they would either never get anything, or if they would get it, would be a knockoff. And so New Balance eventually started working with us, and we created, I think it was called Real Chain or something like that. It was a while back. It was back in 2018.
It wasn't called real world asset tokenization, right? Back then.
Yeah, back
but
then
it was the first one. It was the first one on Cardano, I think, right?
Yeah, this was the first one on Cardano, an RWA tokenization on Cardano. And so we tokenized all of these sneakers, the entire line of sneakers. And so that's why I have these sneakers, because it's a memento from a deal that I put together that basically was the first deal on Cardano that tokenized real world assets, and then eventually created the Italascan suite, which the Italascan was born out of this deal. So yeah, I mean, real world assets were always been kind of a very cool and interesting thing for me, because it's real, right? It makes a difference. You're not just screwing around. You're not just making, you're not printing money, or you're not trading JPEGs or whatever. It's real. It makes a difference, and it makes a difference to the people that are collecting these sneakers behind me. That's why RWAs really spoke to me when I started thinking about zenGate and what does zenGate do.